You're at a gas station on a Tuesday, and the guy at the next pump glances at your car for exactly 1 second longer than he needs to. Not a smirk, not a word, just a flicker of a decision he's already made about you. 3 years ago, that flicker would have wrecked your whole morning. Today, you finish pumping, screw the cap back on, and you're already thinking about something else before you've even pulled onto the road. Something changed in you. And nobody tells you when it happens because it doesn't happen on a day, it happens on 1,000 days you weren't paying attention to. Here's the thing nobody says out loud about getting rich. The spending doesn't stop. It just stops being for other people. And the gap between those two things, showing it versus keeping it, is the entire story of what happens to you on the way up. It starts at $31,000 a year, and an apartment you split 3 ways. You're adjusting a jacket you bought on a payment plan. 4 installments, no interest if you pay it off in time, and you will, because missing that deadline means the store adds it all back, which is the first real financial lesson hiding in plain sight here. Promotional financing isn't free. It's a bet against your own follow-through, and the store is betting you'll lose. You know the math. You bought the jacket anyway, because right now at $31,000, the jacket isn't clothing, it's information. It's the only sentence you get to hand a stranger before they've decided anything else about you. Your coworker Denise catches you checking the tag in the break room mirror and says, "That's new," and you say, "Yeah," like it's nothing, but you heard the way she said it, and some tiny part of you needed her to say it. That part of you is expensive. It's the most expensive part of you there is. Then your car needs brakes, $340, real unavoidable, and you put it on the same card as the jacket, and now you're carrying a balance for the first time in 8 months, and you tell yourself it's temporary. It's not that the jacket was foolish, it's that you didn't yet understand the difference between a want and a signal unlike a want, never turns off. It needs to be refreshed, which is the actual mechanism of lifestyle creep. It's not that your spending rises with your income, it's that your need to be noticed never gets satisfied, so it just finds a more expensive costume every time you can afford one. 4 years later, you're making $140,000, and the mirror is in a different apartment, one with actual light in it, and you're not checking a jacket anymore. You're checking whether the suit fits the room you're about to walk into. There's a car in the garage now, a lease, $610 a month, and actually know because you did the spreadsheet once at 1 a.m., that leasing it instead of buying used costs you close to $9,000 over 3 years versus the alternative. You did it anyway. You told yourself it was about reliability. It wasn't about reliability. It was about the 2 seconds when a client sees it in the parking lot. At a dinner with your manager's boss, you laugh at something he says that isn't funny, and you feel your own laugh land a half-second too hard, and for one uncomfortable moment you clock exactly what you're doing. You're auditioning for a man whose opinion of you a year ago wouldn't have cost you a second of sleep. You start noticing who gets invited places. Not consciously, you just realize one week that your old roommate, the one who still drives the same beat-up Civic from college, hasn't texted in a while. You didn't cut him off, you just stopped making the effort, because somewhere, without deciding to, you started sorting people by whether they'd understand the suit. Here's the part that should scare you more than it does. You're earning 4.5 times what you used to earn, and you don't feel 4.5 times as secure. You feel exactly as anxious as you did at $31,000, just anxious about a bigger number now. That's not a coincidence. That's the entire trap of lifestyle inflation laid bare. Your expenses are rising in lockstep with your income, which means your savings rate, the actual thing that builds wealth, hasn't moved. You could be making 6 figures and still be one bad quarter from broke, because the math that matters was never your income. It was always the gap between income and spending, and you let that gap stay exactly as thin as it was in the apartment with 3 roommates. You cross $500,000 in net worth, and it's the first number that came from somewhere other than a paycheck. Some of it's the market, some of it's a bonus you actually invested instead of spent, and for the first time you understand, viscerally, the difference between money you earned and money that earned itself while you slept. That's the moment compounding stops being a formula in an article and starts being a fact about your own bank statement. You buy a watch. Not a flashy one, you tell yourself that, but a real one, the kind a certain type of person clocks from across a room. You wear it to a dinner with people 2 tiers above where you used to run. Nobody says anything about it, not one word. You'd braced for a compliment or even a joke you could ride for a minute. Instead, silence. Worse than silence, indifference, and you realize halfway through the appetizer that everyone at this table is dressed like they're doing laundry later. No logos, no watches you can identify. The man at the head of the table, the one everyone else is quietly orbiting, is wearing a canvas strap that looks like it came from a drugstore. You spend the rest of dinner slightly too aware of your own wrist. In the car afterward, you take the watch off at a red light without really deciding to, and you don't put it back on for the next one or the one after that. Not because you've suddenly become enlightened, because you just watched in real time that the thing you thought was the finish line was actually the entry fee for a room where it doesn't count anymore. This is where most people expect the story to be about the money. It isn't. It's about the moment you learn that visible wealth has a ceiling on its usefulness. It works on people who don't have it, and it does nothing, sometimes it even costs you, in rooms full of people who do. At $1.3 million, an old friend, the real kind, the one who knew you back when you were splitting an apartment 3 ways, asks to get a drink. It's good, easy, like it used to be. Then, near the end of the night, he goes quiet for a second too long, turns his glass and says he hates to even bring it up, but there's an opportunity and he just needs a little to get it moving. You give it to him. Of course you do. But something small and specific breaks in that exchange. Not the friendship exactly, something under it. You start reading every let's catch up text from people you haven't heard from in years with a kind of tired suspicion you hate having. You wanted for a decade for people to stop seeing a broke kid. Now some of them see the number before they see you at all, and a few of them don't get past the number to you at all. So you do something that would have made no sense to the version of you checking the jacket in that first mirror. You start hiding it, not from shame, from self-defense. You want one dinner where nobody's doing math. Weeks later, you get one. Small dinner, people you don't know well. You drive home and you're halfway there before it hits you. Nobody asked what you do. Nobody asked what you have. The whole night, money was the least interesting thing in the room, and that emptiness where the usual performance should have been felt like the first real exhale you'd had in years. By $5 million, you're standing in a kitchen on a Saturday in a t-shirt that came 3 to a pack, and there are people over, and someone's talking about their kid starting kindergarten, and someone else's dog got into the trash again, and not one person mentions money the entire afternoon. It isn't avoided, it just isn't interesting. You still drive the same car. Not to prove you're humble, you've stopped needing anyone to read that message either. You just never think about it anymore. The watch is in a drawer somewhere, dead battery, face down. You couldn't tell someone the last time you wore it. Your neighbor sees you in the driveway one evening, nods at the car, the scuff on the bumper you never fixed, and says, half joking, "When are you finally getting yourself a real car?" You laugh, say something about how it still runs fine, and go inside. You don't mention the number that would end that conversation instantly. 5 years ago, you'd have found a way to let it slip. Tonight, the thought doesn't even arrive. Not suppressed, just absent, like a language you used to speak that stopped coming to mind. And that's the actual finish line nobody markets to you, because it doesn't sell anything. The flex isn't a purchase, it's a phase. It's what you do with money when you still need it to speak for you. And the entire trajectory of getting wealthy, if you do it right, if you actually build a savings rate wide enough to compound instead of a paycheck wide enough to spend, ends with the exact opposite of where it started. Not louder. Quieter than the day you began. If you've ever caught yourself buying something specifically because of who'd notice it, you're not broken and you're not shallow. You're just early. That's every single person in this story at some point. I make videos about exactly this, the psychology underneath the spreadsheet, not just the spreadsheet. If that's useful to you, stick around. There's more where this came from.